In this session, we're going to talk about HTML programming. I'm going to give a very high-level introduction of HTML, what it is, and how you can create a simple HTML file and how you can view that in your browser. This will be a very good overview for what you need to do in your final project. Essentially everything that I'm going to go through in this session will be the same thing that you'll need to do in your final project. Alright, so let's get started. So what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. And essentially it is a file that contains different tags that tells a web browser how to display a page. So that's it at its simplest. So you are going to learn how to create, essentially program, an HTML file so you can design a page inside of a web browser. So a couple of things that you'll need to know to get started. There are HTML editors out there that there's some that are free, there's some that you can purchase. If you were going to do a lot of HTML programming, you probably would definitely want to use one of those, but we're going to keep it very simple in this class, and you can either use Notepad or WordPad to create your HTML file. And in order for an HTML file to be recognized by the browser, it has to have either an HTML or HTML file extension. So you'll see the example there, mywebpage.html. So you'll see as we go through this, when we save our file, we'll save it as a .html file. We're going to learn about the 4 foundational tags that you need inside of your HTML file, and with these 4 tags you can create a pretty diverse HTML page that your web browser can read with a lot of different elements in it. And so these tags are the HTML tag, the head tag, title, and body tags. These are the 4 that we're going to focus on for this class. So the HTML tag, really all that it does is it just tells the browser that this is an HTML file. So the browser knows when it starts reading the file, it knows what to expect. It knows to expect HTML tags. And so all the tags have these angle brackets around them. So you'll see there's a left angle bracket, a right angle bracket with the tag in the center of it. That's the opening tag, and then there's always a closing tag as well, and you'll notice that the closing tag is almost identical, but it has a slash before the actual tag name, so it's slash.html. Let's take a look at the first tag that we have here, and it is called the head tag. You can think of it like the header tag, and it's going to define the header elements. This are things like the title, the scripts, the styles, meta information, and things like that. And it takes the same format. There's a opening header tag, and then there's a closing header tag. Alright, so as I go through this, I am going to jump around a little bit because I'm actually going to show you how this works as we go through here. So you'll see that I have a browser window open, and then I also have a notepad window open. So I've just opened a blank notepad, and I am going to copy and paste this so you guys don't have to watch me type. But you'll see that there's our opening HTML tag, here's our header tag, and this is what we actually have inside of the header. And you'll see inside of the header we have another type of tag called the title, and then what we're missing is our closing HTML tag. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to save this, and I'm going to just save it out to my desktop so I can access it easily. going to call it my HTML file, and then I'm going to name it HTML, and I'm going to save that. Now I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging here so we can see this. So you can see, let's see, where is it? Here it is, my HTML file up here. So what you can actually do is you're going to grab this HTML file and you're just going to drag it and you're going to drop it right on top of your browser. And notice when you do that, not much changed. You'll see that it shows the file location here, but notice up here in the tab changed. Maybe I should do that again, just to make sure that you can see it. Because to start with, the tab just said new tab. And so when I grabbed this and dragged it on there, you see it says my first HTML page. And that is because that is what our sample file there said. It had the title, and that's what the title tag does. It specifies what's going to be up there in the tab of your browser. So let's jump back to the PowerPoint now. And I actually should have went through the title tag first. This is the one that we just saw in the sample I showed you. It defines the title of the page as it will appear in the header bar. So that title can be anything that you want it to be. Alright, so we've covered the HTML tag, the header tag, and the title tag. Let's take a look at the body tag now. The body defines the body of the document, essentially all the text, the hyperlinks, the images, anything that's going to appear as part of that web page is going to be included in that body tag. So that's probably going to be the majority of what you have in your HTML file. Alright, we're going to talk about some different line break tags that you can have. There's the paragraph, the BR, and the HR line break tags. So the paragraph tag is probably the most common one, and it essentially is how you block off text. It essentially is how you start a new section of text. You can also use it to put blank lines inside your file, so that way you can format the way that your web page looks a little bit better. So there's the paragraph tag. There's also the break tag, and it's similar to the paragraph tag, but it only provides a single space return. So it's really, it's not used as much, and it's not used to section off a paragraph, but it can just be used for a single line return. And then there's also the horizontal rule tag, which is sometimes called a hard return, and it essentially puts a single line across the browser. And we'll look at an example of that, and that will give you a better idea of how that works. So let's do this. Let's start with this. So let's take it one step at a time. We're going to start with our body. So there's the body of our HTML file, and then we know that we need to have an ending body. I actually copied this to the wrong place because your HTML tag, the ending HTML tag, always needs to go at the bottom. So you have your opening HTML tag, you have your header section, then you have your body section, and then you have the ending HTML. Alright, so we're going to save this. I'm going to move this over here. And actually, since we have already saved this HTML file again, I believe that we can just do a refresh, so we don't actually have to copy it in there again. You'll notice when I did refresh, we now see the body that we put right here. This is the good stuff. So this is what's actually going to appear in your web page. Alright, so let's look at some more examples. We also talked about the paragraph. So inside, I'm going to use some line spacing here. We're going to put a paragraph tag in there, and we're going to say this is a paragraph break. Just so you can see how that works, I'm going to come over here to my browser and click refresh to reload the page. And you'll see that that essentially put in a double space, not a single line return, but a double space line return, and said this is a paragraph break. All right, so let's add in the other two types of line returns that we talked about, the BR and the HR. Let's see what it looks like when we put these in there. All right, so we got, this is a BR break. So essentially that's just kind of like a single line return. And then the next one was, this is a HR break. That's what put this horizontal line in there. So put the horizontal line in there, and then below it, it put this is an HR break. Now I was going to show you something else that you can do with that HR, and that is you can actually determine the size and the width of that line break if you want to. So let's do a refresh over here, and you'll see this time that it is the size, so it's much taller line break, and the width is only 50% of the page. And you'll notice here there's no text with it. So I didn't put any text with that line break. I just did the line break, or I should say the horizontal line break by itself. So there's a lot of different, with each of these tags, there's a lot of different parameters that you can use with them. I'm only going to cover them at a very high level in this class. If you go to inside of your, I'm just going to show this real quick now also, inside of your weekly modules or introduction to HTML, and if we go to lecture and resources, this HTML reference takes you to this site www.w3schools.com. There is a wealth of information here about HTML. There's a search that you can use here to search how you do different things. So if you're wanting to get a little fancier with any of your tags and some of the parameters, this is a very good reference to use for that. All right, so let's go back to our PowerPoint now. And this has some more information where we talked about the size and the width. I just showed you that example. All right, and now there's also header tags. Header tags are special markup tags that can define the size and boldness of special text on your page. The thing to remember about this is that HTML cannot control the font size and appearance of your text. They're determined by your browser. However, there are different header levels you can use. So there's a header 1, a header 2, a header 3, and you'll see the boldness and size vary between them. So you can use that to make text larger or smaller on your page. Let's look at some examples of that. So I have 3 examples here of 3 different headers. So a header 1, a header 2, and a header 3. And then you will see the text here. So when we save this and we do our refresh, you'll see that the browser defines this as really large and bold. This one's a little smaller. This one's yet a little bit smaller. So it's an easy way to use a predefined type header for the size and boldness of the text within your HTML file. All right, now you also have text tags. There's different text tags that if you don't want to use your headers, maybe you want to have a little bit more control over it. You can bold your text. You can put your text in italics. You can use typewriter text. You can center your text. So there's a lot of different things that you can do there with the text tags. Let's look at an example. So here's an example of putting some more text into the body. Here's some more text in the body. This should be, and now we're using the bold text tag to bold that last piece of text. So let's save this, do a refresh over here, and then you'll see here is more text in the body. This should be bold, and you'll see that that last piece of text is in bold. So, you know, we're all used to using very user-friendly editors, word processors like Microsoft Word, and all we have to do is highlight and click and do different things like that to bold text. So to some extent it might feel like you're going a little bit backwards using HTML because it's a little bit harder to format your text. But this is the way that you can format text so a browser can read it. And this HTML should be supported in any browser that you want to use. I'm using Word, but it should work in IE or Firefox or Edge or whatever browser is your preference. Alright, so moving right along. I'm not going to show examples of italics and these other ones, but I think you get the idea. You guys can play around with these when you're doing your final project. Alright, and so there's also an opportunity to do some lists, and this is, think of like a bulleted list or a numbered list. That's what we're talking about. There's really three basic forms. There's an ordered list, an unordered list, and then a definition list. And so an ordered list is something like this that has a 1, a 2, and a 3. And this is the format that you use. There's a tag, a starting tag called OL, and then each one of your list items, LI is the tag, list item has an LI tag, and then you have to have your ending OL tag. So let's look at an example of that. I'm just going to keep going in my file here. So here's our ordered list. We have 3 items, my first, second, and third item. I'm going to save this, refresh my browser, and then here's our 3 items. Now one thing that you notice here is I didn't put any kind of a line break here, so this text actually appears up on the previous line. That's probably not the way that we want that to work. So typically what happens is you put a paragraph marker in there to say to start a new paragraph. Actually, this is the way we want to do that. There we go. That puts it on the next line. So you can see that's how the ordered list works. There are a couple of different other lists. There's the unordered list. Almost the exact same thing, except the beginning tag is a UL, and it gives you a bullet instead of a number. So let's look at an example of that. This is our unordered list. I'm going to copy the paragraph break so it's formatted properly. Hit my refresh. And now we see there's an ordered list, and here's my unordered list, which is bullet items. Pretty straightforward. All right, there's one other kind of list that we're going to look at, and this is the definition list. And the beginning tag is a DL tag, and then each term within it has a DT. Definition term, which is the term, and then the DD, which is the actual definition of the definition list. So you'll see they come in pairs. You have the DT, and then you have the DD. DT, DD. So there's actually 3 terms that are defined here. This one's kind of hard, a little bit harder to get, but I think if we look at an example, it'll be easier to understand. All right, so here is a definition list, and so we have term SM, which means social media, another term SaaS, which means software as a service, and another term IT, which means information technology. Let's take a look at how this is formatted in the browser, and you'll see that essentially it indents it. Here's the term, and then it indents the definition of it. So I don't really think this one's probably used quite as often, but that is another type of list that you can use. It's called the definition list. All right, well, there's just a few more things that we are going to go through. There's our definition list. We already looked at that. All right, how do you put a link? How do you put a link inside of your HTML page if you want to link to somewhere else on the internet? You use the href tag, and then you essentially give it the link of what you want to link to. And then after that, this is the text that's going to show up that you're going to click on for the link. And this is actually wrong here because it should say Google search engine is what it should say. Let's look at an example. All right, I am going to stay within the body, and I'm going to say now let's link to something cool. Put my paragraph break in there, and then here's my href tag, and I'm linking to a story that's on USA Today on their tech page. So actually what I should show is if I go over here to the end, you'll see the text that's going to display in the browser is Cyber Monday. So when you're going to click on Cyber Monday, and then it's going to take you to this actual link. So let's refresh our page. And here we see it down at the bottom. Now let's link to something cool. Click on Cyber Monday, and that took us to the web page. It's an article about Cyber Monday. All right, what else do we have left? I think we are almost at the end. That's all the slides that I had, but a couple of other things that I wanted to show that you might want to do for your final project is color. So you might want to add some color to your website. So it says, now let's try some color. So that's the text that's actually going to appear in the browser. And then we have a paragraph marking here. And you'll see this is one of the style parameters that you can use. And we're going to say the style is going to be, the background color is going to be blue, and the color of the text is going to be white. And then we're going to say this should be a blue background with white text. So let's see what happens here. There you go. So that made the background blue, and it made the text white. And we put that inside, see we're using our paragraph marker there, we put it inside that paragraph marker. The last thing that I want to show is one of the things that your final project asks you to do is to include a video or an image inside of, let's use the whole screen here so you can see the whole thing. It asks you to put a video or an image inside of your HTML page. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's try this. Here we go. All right, so we did our paragraph marker, and then here is the tag to put an image. So it's the IMG tag, and then you use the src parameter, and then you essentially put a link to the image that's some image out there on the internet. So let's save that, let's refresh, and you'll see there's the image. Now, one thing that I will say about this is the image that you include in your final project is going to need to be an image that already exists out on the internet somewhere. It cannot be an image that just sits on your PC, that's on your C drive or something like that. Since we're not developing a web server and you're not hosting images, you're not going to be able to do that. So the images will actually have to be out there somewhere on the internet already, or some of you use different applications and stuff out on the web where you can actually store images, and if you are able to access them that way, that will work. But the key will be that when I look at this and I run your HTML page, I'm going to need to be able to see the image as well. So that's why I say it needs to be publicly available image or video that's already out on the internet. And if you have questions about that, you can send me an email. I think that concludes. So if we look at this is our HTML file. So we started up here with our HTML, and we went down and we have our header, we had our body. The body goes all the way down through our image, and then the file has to be ended with the /HTML. So keep in mind that I created this file with Notepad. When I saved it with the .html extension, and then you can simply just drag and drop that file onto your browser, and the browser will interpret the HTML tags. All right, have fun with HTML.